So this is the main landing page for MarketLine. So firstly, it's always valuable to have a wide view of your intended market in order to get a sense of the current operational environment. Therefore, you might first look for an analysis of the target country. MarketLine contains full analysis reports on various countries. These are really comprehensive, updated frequently, and include a full pestle analysis examining the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental state of play for a particular country you are targeting. So the first thing that you might do is go to Analysis, Countries and Cities, and Country Profiles. In this case, you'll see here, the first result that came up was a report for United Kingdom, which is the country that we're looking at for today's example. And you'll also see that it was published on the 26th of November 2020, which is about a week ago. So it's really recent. So you have the option to click into the report itself. When you do, you'll notice that it's quite comprehensive. It's 87 pages long, but you do have within the report a clear structure and a clear contents field as well. So you'll see it here. So the nice thing about this is in the report you have the pestle highlights, which I mentioned earlier on, but you also have it broken down into much more detail throughout the documents, as you'll see here in area 4. And also there you can see just above that the impact of COVID-19. That just illustrates exactly how recent this report is. And it'll give you a nice overview and analysis of the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental aspect of the United Kingdom as it currently stands. So it's really, really handy report, and it will give you a nice broad introduction to a particular country, and then within that then you can do more research and identify a particular market as well, just to see how both the country and the market are currently performing. Now that you have a sense of the broader operational environment, you may want to find information on a specific target industry that you're thinking of adopting or moving into. In this case, we can search for prepared meals. So if I go back to the MarketLine homepage here, I'm going to type in prepared meals and do a quick search. So you'll see here, one of the results is prepared meals for the UK, and that report was published on the 27th of September of this year, so it's quite recent. So similar in a way to the country report that we've just looked at, and this is a more specific report focusing on an industry within a particular country. In this case, it's the ready-made or prepared meals market. So we can click on the link. And again, we get a similar report. You have the option then to download that as a Word or PDF document should you wish. In this case, it's 33 pages long, which again is quite comprehensive. But what I like about it is you have your contents page. And you have also, which is really interesting, if you scroll down, just past the contents here, you have the market definition. So what does MarketLine actually mean when it says prepared meals? So in this case, it's ready meals, it's chilled and frozen pizzas, and meal kits. So it gives you a definition of the terms applied to this particular industry via MarketLine. Then also what you have is you have the quantitative breakdown of the market itself into values and volumes. And you also have a 5 forces analysis as well. So you'll see here the quantitative metrics in terms of values and historical volumes as well, which again, quite useful to have. And you can reference and use these in your work if you want to, as long as you acknowledge them correctly. You also have, as I said, you have the market segmentation piece, and you also have the 5 forces analysis, which is really, really useful. And this is something that you would really focus on when you're thinking about entering a new market. So if you scroll down, you'll see here, area 6 is the 5 forces analysis. So it gives you the summary, it gives you The buyer power section, it gives you analysis on supplier power, degree of rivalry within the current market, and then it gives you the competitive landscape as well. And then last but not least, it will give you a list of the key players as well. So it's worth noting that these are some of the key players, or not all. It's a snapshot of them, okay? So you can scroll down there and you'll see more about those particular companies. So for example, one of them is Keypack. So at this point, we've looked at the wider data in terms of the operation environment when it comes to the country. We've now looked at the actual industry within that particular country. And then the third facet really is to identify the key players and where possible to get some information on those particular companies as well. So MarketLine will also allow us to do that. So one example here is Keypack, and this is a good example, and you'll see why in a second. So if I go back to the MarketLine homepage and I type in Keypack and do a search. So on the results page, if you scroll down, you'll see a section here for companies and a link to Keypack Group. So you do get a company page, so to speak, for Keypack. But this is an important point to note. Keypack is a privately held company, and therefore they don't publish their accounts, or they don't publish much data. So therefore, publicly available data is very hard to come by. So you'll see that this report was published in 2016 and it hasn't been updated since. So while it will still give you a flavour of that particular company, it is worth noting that the data is dated because of the fact that it's a privately held company. But you do get the latest news below as well anyway, which is also useful. In contrast then, another company that you might look at when it comes to the ready meal market in the UK is Curry Group. So Curry Group would be the leading customer branded supplier of chilled and frozen ready meals. So again, if we go back to the homepage and we type in Curry Group, you'll see the difference. Curry Group is publicly held. So again, we scroll down, companies, Curry Group PLC. So there's a lot more information here because they're publicly held. They're not a private company, so they are quoted on the stock market. So you'll see the information here, contact details, or revenue, profit, income for the last year available, which is 2019. You'll also see the latest news here, and you'll see the little graphs that you can use as well. But also, really handy, you can see any deals that they've done or any mergers or acquisitions as well. And you can find out more information about those underneath. And also you have the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, so a SWOT analysis for Curry Group, which is really handy. So again, very, very easy to read, very easy to understand and digest, but it gives you a nice flavour of Curry Group as a company and what their particular strengths are and areas for improvement. And again, you can use all this information in your own work and reports as well, should you wish to do so. And then lastly, you'll see here that this was updated in June of this year, so it's about 6 months old at this point, which it's okay, it's fine. It just gives you a nice background to the company itself. So this is really just to illustrate to you the value of MarketLine in terms of the segmentation of a particular market and identifying, number one, the kind of operation environment that you're walking into. Number two, you're looking at the particular industry itself, and is it a viable industry via the pestle analysis. And then number three, who are the key players within that market? What's their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What's their data? What's their profit? What's their loss? What's their margins here? And you can get all this information from MarketLine. The last thing to mention then is always worth looking at this data in context. So I mentioned previously about the quantitative element in terms of historical volume and growth rates. But you also want to position that in terms of forecasted rates as well. So MarketLine will give you another option that you can use as well. So if you go to databases, industry, and industry data. So this is essentially, so again, if you type in prepared here, you'll get a spreadsheet essentially for the prepared meals market on a global scale. So it's not specific to one particular country. So this is it here and it was published last year. So you can download the Excel file and then you can have a look at that data as well. So this is actually it here when you download it. So for example, you'll see here, you can look at a cross section. So you can look at the global reach of the prepared meals market. You can look at the value of the market across the continents in terms of historical, but also projected rates as well. So 2021, 2022, etc. And then you can also look at the volume of sales as well within those markets. And you have lots of other options below here as well. You can look at the market summary if you want. So for example, there it is segmented to the UK specifically. So it gives you a nice overview of that particular market. And then if you want to compare the UK against another country or countries, you can do that as well by selecting the various options here. And it will give you a nice breakdown. So for example, you might look at the UK. You might look at Norway. And you could pick Australia as an example. And obviously you have other options there as well in terms of the countries. But you'll see that it will update on the left hand side here. And if you hover over any of these squares, you'll see the corresponding country highlight in the ranking system to the right hand side there. So you can see that Europe is the top one. Then we also have the UK, which is second, and so on and so forth. So this is just one option to allow you to quickly compare countries in terms of the value of the market when it comes to prepared meals. And it's something that you might consider for your own research needs as well. So I would certainly encourage you to engage with the raw data as well, because it gives you an important context for a particular market on both a national and international stage. That concludes our introduction to MarketLine, and you should now have a better understanding of the type of data and quantity of data that's available to you within the platform.